Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger. Today we're chatting with my friend Nathan Hirsch of Ecom Balance. So Nathan has quite the business resume. Started selling on Amazon, started selling textbooks in college, hired his friend Connor, who's now his business partner in what they're doing, and went from an awesome Amazon business, drop shipping, and to a VA business called FreeUp that they eventually sold, and then an outsourcing school business that they still have where they teach entrepreneurs how to hire and train VAs. And now they pivoted to an accounting bookkeeping service using VAs called Ecom Balance. So just a lot of awesome nuggets in this episode. Just chatting with him about how he creates culture with his VA team, because I have a lot of VAs in the Philippines, and I learned a ton from this interview on how to have an awesome team, how to keep them around, how to incentivize them, how to create that culture that makes them never ever want to leave, and just business tips on how to have SOPs in your business, how to set up your business to be able to be sold, and just so much. You're going to love this episode. Here's my interview with Nathan. Nathan, welcome to Streams of Income.
Thanks so much for having me. It's good to be back. It's good to see you again. We were just chatting that we haven't talked since, or we haven't seen each other since Orlando, but I appreciate you having me on.
2017, yeah, this Orlando CES event. But there's one coming up. Jim has a event in Louisville on August. So
very cool. He always puts on good events. So if you're listening and you hear this in time, definitely check it out. Yeah.
So I want to jump into your story. Tell me about how you got started. I mean, obviously we're going to get to Ecom Balance, talk about FreeUp. A lot of people have used that and been blessed by that. And I know you guys were able to sell that off, but tell me how you got started in your business journey.
Yeah. So it all started when I was in college. I mean, my parents were both teachers. They made me get real jobs from the time I was 15. So I worked at Aaron's, which is kind of like a rent-a-center. I worked at a meat store near my house. I was an umpire in my town, did a lot of random stuff. At that time, I had an internship with Firestone, and it was a pretty cool internship. It was lined up for a job after college. And I remember needing some extra side money in college. And I started buying and selling people's textbooks, competing with my school bookstore. And it was a nice little gig, making a few $1,000s a month or whatever. And I finally got a cease and desist letter from my college to knock it off because I was stealing too much of their business, which as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kind of shook me a little bit. But I had an Amazon account. I was selling some books on there. Mm-hmm. No one really knew what Amazon was. This was like 2008, 2009. Yeah. And I started just experimenting, selling other products, doing drop shipping years before I even knew what drop shipping was. This concept that I could sell someone else's products and give them my credit card to hold on to, and they send it where I tell them to. They charge my card, and I start building all these relationships with different retailers, started going around the retailers directly to the manufacturers. And before I knew it, I was running this multi-million-dollar business out of my college dorm room. Ended up hiring my business partner, Connor. He was just this kid at the time in my business law class. And we started hiring. We had to grow, and we started hiring college kids. And that was a complete disaster. I mean, they were unreliable. They were drinking on the job. They were smoking on the job.
What were you having them do for you?
So they were doing everything from like customer service to repricing. Keep in mind that there wasn't a lot of Amazon software back then. Listing products, like updating inventory, communicating with our suppliers. Pretty typical Amazon dropshipping stuff.
Yeah.
But finally, we kind of realized that college kids were not the way to go if we really wanted to scale this business. And a buddy of mine introduced me to the virtual assistant space, hired my first VA from the Philippines, and became very addicted to that. I kind of saw that as a way to really scale the business with affordable labor. That was a win for them, a win for us. Sorry for the dogs.
That's all right.
Just open the back door.
Good. All good.
And so we started hiring virtual assistants, and as the Amazon became more competitive and there were more people in the space and more courses and more gurus kept popping up, and Amazon kept changing their rules, we started giving these VAs to other Amazon sellers, and sellers would come to us and say, hey, I need a graphic designer, I need a customer service rep, I need an Amazon lister, or whatever it is. And we would provide them. And we eventually turned that into a marketplace where clients could sign up and request a freelancer, and we provide it, and they get billed through the platform. And that quickly surpassed our Amazon business, and that became known as FreeUp. And so FreeUp was cool because that was our first real opportunity to grow our own brand, to have our own website, to do marketing and learn SEO and do a lot of stuff that wasn't just relying on selling other people's brands and selling on Amazon with an Amazon account. And so we learned so much about partnerships and networking and doing content swaps and all that kind of stuff. And we scaled that. We scaled that for 4 years. It was a ton of fun. We ended up exiting that, which we can dive into if you want, back in 2019 to one of our clients, which is kind of cool, who reached out to us and said, we love your platform. We want to get into the space. We don't want to start it ourselves. And since then, I've taken a few years off, launched a course called Outsource School, where we teach people our hiring process, and this new venture, Ecom Balance, which is all about helping e-commerce sellers really understand their numbers and make good business decisions and prepare their business to sell if that's something that they want to do. So that's the short, long version of
that's awesome.
There. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you feel like, do you know very many people that started with one thing and are still doing it like 10 years later? Like, you started about the same time I did. You said you hired Connor in 2008 or 9. Is that right?
Yeah. It's rare. Like, I mean, I feel like you either what you're doing to make money just doesn't work in 10 years, or you get sick of it, or you get lucky enough where someone buys you out, or you're able to exit in some way or merge. And that kind of opens up other opportunities. But you're right. It's funny how that works out. It's tough to do the same thing for 30 years.
Really, it is. Especially as entrepreneurs, we're always see new ideas, and there's like, oh, I want to do this now. And you get bored with what you were doing before. So that's when you started FreeUp. When you guys started FreeUp, did you have any? I imagine you weren't thinking exiting at some point, were you?
We weren't thinking exiting. We like to build our businesses to be sellable in the sense of good systems, good processes, the business really running without us, and where we can go on vacations and stuff like that. And hopefully a good reputation and a good name. But even 2019, we didn't go into the year being like, we got to unload this thing by the end of the year. It kind of just happened. And you kind of make decisions based on opportunities.
Yeah. How did that happen? So you said somebody in your group, one of your clients, did they come to you and say, hey, I'd like to buy you out? Or I'm just curious. This is fascinating to me to hear how I'd love to get into the systems and processing talk of how to get your business or how to build it so that it's not relying on you. That's super smart. But how did that come about that your client came to you and you guys ended up selling?
Yeah. So Mark Hargrove and David Martin, two great entrepreneurs that own a company called The Hoth, along with a few other businesses. They kind of own this conglomerate of companies that they've just been buying up for 20 years. They were a client of FreeUp. They reached out to us and said, hey, we've been looking at the freelancer space. It's something that we're interested in. We like the market. We don't really like starting business ourselves, which we tend to just buy businesses. Would you be interested in discussing an acquisition? And at the time, we kind of just heard them out, and I remember being at a conference with Connor. I just happened, which is weird because we never go to conferences together, but we just happened to be at the same conference, and we hopped on a call with them, and they asked a lot of questions about the industry and financials and our business and how it's evolved and where it's at now. And they ended up coming back to us a week later with an offer, which is kind of the initial point of it. And we thought about it. There were a lot of things that went into that decision of how far we could push FreeUp without extra help, what changes would have had to happen for us to take it from 12 million a year, which is what we're doing, to get to 25, to get to 50. Some big changes would have to happen. Keep in mind, this is pre-pandemic, so the economy was at an all-time high, and there were other decisions as well. But we made the decision to go through with it. And what followed was probably the most stressful 6 months of my life, because you're kind of going back and forth with due diligence. They're sending you 20 questions every week. We're doing due diligence on them because we don't want to sell it to someone who's going to sue us later or blow up our business or hurt our team or hurt our clients. Right. And meanwhile, we're focusing on FreeUp because this deal could fall through at any second. So we have to stay focused on growing this business. We don't want to only think we're going to sell it and then go back to something that's falling apart. So we're working on it. We're going through due diligence. Once the due diligence is done, then the lawyers get involved, which wasn't their fault or our fault. It's like, for us, it was the biggest moment of our life. For the lawyers, it's another Tuesday. So they have other clients. They go on vacation. Like, we're not necessarily the top priority for them, even though our lawyers were great and their lawyers are looking out for them. Our lawyers are looking out for us, dotting every I, going through every of the tiniest detail. And that took months. And then finally we flew out to Tampa and got the thing signed. But it was a pretty crazy process.
Man, that's awesome. I don't want to ask particulars about the deal or anything, but just curious, like, do you remember, like, somebody will think when in my Legends group, for example, we have, we're going beyond just Amazon. We had a real estate class last week, or a real estate webinar. And we're also in the midst of a business acquisitions class, because there are people, as we talked about before we even hit record, that, Amazon sellers, most of them, I found that they're not planning on doing Amazon for 10 or 20 years. It's a means to an end. There's other things they're interested in entrepreneurially. And so they ask us in that group. And one of them that we were asking about was, how do you actually acquire a business? So we brought somebody in to talk about that. So do you remember like the multiple that was used? Was it 2x, 3x, 5x? You remember that?
I do. I kind of won't go into it. We got a pretty good multiple. As you know this, every industry kind of has its own multiple. And I mean, our business was very unique. And I know everyone says that about their business, but what I mean about that is we had no debt. It was bootstrapped. We started it with $5,000. There's no real overhead cost. The whole business was remote. We had no US employees. The entire internal team was 30 VAs in the Philippines. On top of that, it was very cash flow positive. So there was never a point where we needed cash for anything, because clients would pay us first. There was a little delay. We'd take our cut. We'd pay the freelancers. So we always had more money in the bank than we actually had, which is a little bit unusual for most businesses. There's obviously no inventory and other things that would be considered risky. And we control their own brand. There was no like Amazon suspending us one day. Like that wasn't a real option. And those are just a few factors that I think allowed us to have a higher multiple. The industry does matter. I do think back then there were probably less freelance marketplaces and freelance agencies than maybe the pandemic created. But yeah, I mean, it is super interesting on multiples. And I think if you're taking the other route where you're trying to buy businesses, you're looking for, how do I reduce the multiple? How do I get a better deal? Am I doing it off EBITDA? Am I doing it off revenue? Can I get something that's times 1 or times 1.5? Whereas from our side, we're obviously like trying to get the best deal possible.
Yeah. That's awesome. So when you guys exited, were you guys completely done, or did you have to work in the business for a little bit?
Yeah, so this is something I was recently talking to Chad Rubin, who just sold his company, Scubana. And that was one of our things. Like, if we're going to sell this company, we want to be completely out. We don't want to become employees. That was never the goal. We don't want to be having someone else be the driver making decisions that we're implementing. So we created a 90-day plan for us to get out. And they told us from the beginning, we're going to make it 90 days, but the goal is to get you guys out as fast as humanly possible. And that's what ended up happening. For the first few weeks, we were working 40 40, 50 hours a week. And then it quickly became 10 or less. And well before the 90 days we were out. And if they had questions, we were happy to answer them. We continue just a great relationship with Mark and David, and they actually promoted Ecom Balance just to be nice to us very recently. And we look at them as mentors. So I think one of the most underrated parts of selling a business is actually vetting who you're selling it to. We couldn't have sold it to two better human beings that just had the same values as us. They kept good care of our team. Like part of our agreement was we took $500,000 and gave it to our team in the Philippines. And we made it so that their jobs are secure. And here we are 2.5 years later, and everyone still has their jobs. And so they really honored everything. They paid us every penny. They kept people their jobs. We're friends with them to this day. They're helping us with new companies, even if it's just advice and
that's so cool.
And all of that. So the last thing you want to do is send to someone who has completely different values than you.
Yeah. Because those team members were your friends. I mean, I have a leadership team in the Philippines and they're my buddies. I mean, maybe it's not a good way to describe it, but you get close to them. They're almost like family. And so,
and it's sad. Cool. It's sad to like sell it and breaking the news for them. There are a lot of tears, but it was also nice to be like, hey, here's a check that's coming to you.
$500,000.
And your jobs are secure, which is obviously everyone's first question when there's an acquisition.
How many members in the Philippines did you have?
Yeah. So keep in mind, it's a marketplace. So there's a difference between freelancers on the platform and freelancers on the internal team or VAs on the internal team. So we had about 30 to 35 on the internal team, but the overall platform had 1,000.
So you were able to give 30 to 40 people $500,000 total. You split that up between them. Like here's did you give it in one chunk to them?
Yeah, we needed some incentive for them to say. We didn't want them to just take the money and leave. Part of that's covered under an NDA, but they got a good chunk up front, and then there was a way to make it so it was fair for them. And
dude, that's awesome. I mean, okay, so I employ Filipino VAs, and I know I'm just doing the math and looking at a calculator. What potentially if you had 40 of them, I mean that's several years' salary. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we couldn't have done it without them. Like, to be honest, like FreeUp was at the point where if Connor and I worked 24/7 and we didn't have our team, we would not have been able to run the business. Like we needed a great team to do things like billing and customer service and all the stuff that goes into a marketplace. And they're the reason that we were able to scale that thing.
That's so cool. So when you guys were working with that team, let's talk about the systems and processes. I love that you said you guys. So when you guys sold it, you were at a place that you guys could have you could go on vacation and they basically ran it for you. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think this is a common misconception because I was kind of the face of FreeUp, right? Like I was going on the podcast and all of that. And so from a marketing standpoint, it's fairly easy to replace me from marketing, right? Like you can come in with a new marketing team with a completely different strategy, doing a million things that I never even got to. Like I had a few strategies. I would go on podcasts, I'd go to conferences, whatever. But the actual core of the business, customer service, filling orders, billing clients, all of that ran without me. And that's the part that Mark and David really looked at and saw, hey, like this part is good. Even if Nathan's not there, we can come up with our own marketing strategy. I mean, they own a marketing company, so that's kind of what they do. So I think that's kind of the key to it. Plus standard operating procedures. I mean, when we were going through due diligence, we were sharing 50-page SOPs on, hey, in every possible customer service situation that comes up, this is what you do. This is what happens on billing day, whatever it is. We had systems for every little thing.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you guys were teaching in outsource school, right?
Exactly.
And I'm a part of that. I need to dig in more into that. When you're hiring, tell me about just the Philippines, because so I hear some people say that, man, you're only paying them X amount of dollars, but to them, it's a really good wage and it creates an incredible win-win. What's your experience with, it's probably the same experience that I have. Just Philippines, they're awesome. I mean, it seems like they work way harder than us Americans. It seems like they're always up. Like I don't know when they sleep. They're just amazing. What's been your experience and why do you guys prefer the Philippines?
Yeah. So to start, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making is they'll hire like one person from Pakistan, one person from Romania, like one from the Philippines, and they'll just have this team of people scattered all over the world. Especially if you're new to hiring remote, you're just adding way more work to your plate. I mean, there's different cultures, different time zones, different ways that people communicate. So it's best to stick with one place, in my opinion. And that's what I've always done. Maybe two places if you're doing like US and international. And if you're going to hire from one place, Philippines is a great place to start. I mean, you mentioned it, the cost of living there is very low. If you're paying people $5 an hour plus, you're doing pretty well. Yeah. And we've had people in the Philippines that we have paid $15-$20 an hour to, and that's incredible. There's not many jobs that they're going to get in the Philippines for that amount. They're used to working graveyard shift, like for Ecom Balance. Our team works mountain time, which a lot of other countries, it's tough to get them to do that. Yeah, they speak English at a high level, which is obviously super important. They learn English in school. And I think they were just ahead of the curve when it came to the remote life. I mean, with the pandemic, everyone's working remote. I like to think like we were working remote before it was cool to work remote. And that's very similar from the Philippines. A lot of them have turned to being VAs 10, 15 years ago, because they looked at it as a good opportunity. And we teach more reasons why in Outsource School, but that's kind of the core, the big ones. Yeah.
So you had FreeUp, you sold that, and then you started Outsource School to be able to train people how to have their own VA team, how to hire, where to find them, how to train them, and how to basically interact with their VA.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this unique hiring process that we learned by a lot of trial and error in college when we were hiring VAs. And that's kind of our opportunity to share it with the world. It's, hey, these are the interview questions we ask. This is how we onboard people. This is how we manage them. This is how we run meetings. This is how we fire them and handle issues and promote them and move people to leadership roles, and really how we run our team, and kind of giving people a behind the scenes that they can just take and plug into their business. And it's all about doing it in a fast and efficient way. I mean, you don't want to be doing 5-hour interviews every time you want to interview someone. You want to have a good process that works, that you can put people.
Sure. Yeah. When I talk to people about outsourcing, a lot of people know they need to do it, but they're nervous about it. They know, can I afford it? And what if I hire this person and it doesn't work out? Any tips on getting that first hire? Like, just things to get people over the hump because once they do it, they're gonna be like, oh, I wish I would have done this 2 years ago. But as you're talking to Amazon sellers and other business owners, how do you, just any tips on getting over that hump and actually making that first hire that it doesn't have to be as scary as it sounds like it is?
Yeah, I would start small. I mean, find the easiest task that takes you 1 to 2 hours a day. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do anything that's mission critical to your business. Like they shouldn't be finding profitable products or doing it. Yeah, running your PPC campaigns. Like none of that. Start super easy, super small. Hire someone 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, and get really good at it. Use your own process. Use Outsource School's process, or whatever it is. And once you master it, you can always increase that person's hours or hire a second person. And like you said, it becomes addicting. I mean, every entrepreneur goes through the same thing. You build a business, you're like, this is fun. I'm going to do it all myself because I'll make more money that way. And it's my baby. And then eventually you get burnt out, or you realize you can't do it all yourself. And then you're forced to hire people one way or another. So you might as well get good at hiring early. And to me, it's like financials. Like there's very few entrepreneurs that succeed by not hiring well and not knowing their financials. Those are the two core of any business. Marketing kind of changes, other parts of your business, Amazon or whatever, change as well. But being able to hire and being able to make good decisions based on what the numbers are telling you, that was the same 50 years ago, and it's the same thing now, and it'll be the same thing in 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Any tips on the interview process? Just like, because that would be scary for a lot of folks. I know that's why they would just hire that's why FreeUp was an awesome service and is an awesome service, because I don't have to do all that. I can just go to this. I know that they're vetted. I don't have to post a job description, get 50 different applications, weed through all of them, do all those interviews. I can just go right to a source like FreeUp and get it done. So what are some tips for people that kind of, doing it themselves, want to, do the legwork?
Yeah. So I think the mistake a lot of people make is they're just focused on the experience. They'll dive into their Amazon skills, their VA skills, whatever it is. And that's one part of the equation, but how they communicate and what their attitude is are just as important. So when we're hiring anyone, whether it's US or in the Philippines, we're looking for that trifecta. Obviously, we want them to have the experience we're hiring for. That's a factor.
Yeah.
But we also want them to be able to communicate at a high level with us. And that can be as simple as speaking English, but it kind of goes above and beyond that too. We don't want to have conversations with people that go in circles. We want them to be able to communicate with other people on our team. We want them to be able to not ramble and directly answer questions that we ask them. So communication, incredibly important.
Yeah.
And their attitude, like what are their values? If there's someone that's just in it to make it as much money as possible, that's not really us. Like
right.
Money's great. We all need money. I get that. But you have to like something more than money. You have to like learning, like want a long-term opportunity, want to build things, want to become a leader, whatever that is. And we want someone with that kind of attitude where it's the team first. They believe in what we're building. They want to see the company grow, and we want to pay people fairly, but money can't just be the end all be all for anything, because at the end of the day, no matter how big your company is, no matter how much money you have, there's always going to be someone that can pay more money than you can. So if money is the only thing keeping people around, that's going to backfire on you at some point in the future. So look for that trifecta, that communication, attitude, and experience.
Yeah, that's good. When I listened to Darren Darren Hardy. Well, he has those. He's the one that's founded Success Magazine, and he has a Darren Daily, and he talks about just taking care of your team. How do you do that when they're remote? Like, like if I was your employee and I lived in Colorado with you, I mean, you could take me out to lunch once in a while, or here's a gift card to my favorite restaurant. And what are some things that you do for a VA? Obviously, I mean, probably maybe a bonus here and there, but some things that you do to make it to like, they never ever want to leave.
Yeah. And that's the key to the whole thing. Turnover just crushes businesses. And that's kind of what we take pride in, is just having very little turnover. And having a good bonus and raise program is important. And we implement that, and we clearly set those expectations up front. But like I kind of said, money, there's always someone that can pay more than you. So it's got to be something else. So we focus a lot on culture, and here are just a few things that we do. So we have a Monday morning hands-on, we call it an all hands on deck meeting. Okay. And we start off that meeting with everyone sharing pictures of their weekend on Slack. And then when we get on a Zoom or we keep it on Slack, we always start off with a question. So we just hired a new integration manager for Ecom Balance. So when we do that, everyone gets to go around and ask the new person a question. So it's a quick get to know you. Nice. When we don't have a new hire, we'll say, hey, what's your favorite food, your favorite sport, whatever it is. And everyone kind of goes around and you get to learn about each other. Yeah. We do a culture meeting once a month and a separate happy hour once a month. The culture meeting has a real purpose where we're trying to get people to believe in the values of what we're building. And the happy hour is more a chance to have fun. We'll play games. There's really no work involved. So that's cool. These are pretty small, take 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Yeah. The team really likes it. And then we do one-on-one check-ins with people. Connor will do one-on-ones with people every few weeks. And then we'll do every 6 months, we'll do a real one-on-one with both of us there and really try to figure out what people don't like, what's stressing them out, what feedback do they have? How can we improve as owners? And this is something like, if you do any of this stuff, even if you're not doing it perfectly, you're ahead of 99% of the businesses out there. And it's going to go a long way. People are not going to want to leave your company if they feel like they're having a good time. They have a team that they consider their family, and they believe that you actually care about them, which we do. We care about them. We want them to love it here. And that's what we focus on.
I love the happy hour idea. So do you play an online game or something that you can do it just virtually?
Yeah. So we have a VA that's kind of the behind the scenes operations person, and she's in charge of just bringing a game. So we'll do like a hangman or charades or whatever it is online. Someone will share their screen, and just a chance for people to laugh. And I always try to just make a fool of myself so that, you don't, so people don't take you like too seriously. I try to avoid being the boss that's just like talking down to people. And I'm just a guy trying to have fun, trying to build businesses, trying to create a win-win for our clients, our team, for Connor and I, for everyone, you know?
Yeah. You know, my problem, Nathan, I feel like I'm too nice sometimes, but I guess that's just my personality. To me, my team, there's 6 of them. And, you know, if they need something, if they're in the hospital or just something happens, like grandma passes away, you know, I send them some money for the funeral to help out with that type of stuff. And we can't do that for everybody that works for us. Maybe like your freelancers, you can do it for your core team, but I feel like, how do you draw that line? And this is just for me personally, just talking to somebody who's done this probably longer than I have. I want to be their friend, but also need to be their boss. And it's easier sometimes to be their friend. They look at me as the boss, I think, but there needs to be a healthy respect there. And is there a point to where you got to just be boss and can't be their friend all the time? That's hard line for me sometimes, I think. Yeah,
it is hard. I think a big part of that comes down to the expectations we set up front. And we go through this on onboarding. It's like, hey, we care about you. We want you to succeed. We want you to have a good time. At the same time, we have very high expectations and we give direct feedback, and we're going to let you know if you're doing something well, if you're not doing something well. And we don't really work with people that take things personally. Like if you leave a meeting with me and you're like, Nate's an a-hole and he doesn't care about me and whatever, when I'm trying to just give you feedback and improve the company, like that's just not one of our core values and not part of our culture. So we do a good job of setting those expectations. So down the line, if it leads to that kind of conversation, we can go back and say, hey, this is nothing new. We told you all this up front. And it also makes it very easy to remove a bad apple, which we had to do over the years. And I'm sure you have as well. People who will start gossiping behind the scenes or start causing drama, all stuff that's just not part of our culture.
Yeah. Is it easy to get at those things when it's virtual? Like if you're in an office together, it's kind of easier to see that person's kind of creating some chaos. When it's virtual, it's a little bit harder, unless maybe somebody comes to you and tells you, hey, this person over here is doing this and that.
Harder, yes. I think one of the cool things, and as you build up a team, and this is why making those initial great hires is so important. If there's an issue, if someone's causing drama, if someone's not doing their job, very rarely am I the first person that finds out about it. Usually someone comes to me and they're like, hey, you should know this is what's happening, because they care so much about the business. They care so much about what they're a part of. They don't want to jeopardize their job. They don't want to jeopardize the company or the culture or anything there. So they're going to bring it up, and they might even address it directly with that person or bring it up to me or whatever it is.
I want to get into e-com balance here real quick. Last question, thinking about the VA stuff, because this is helping me personally. If nobody else gets anything out of this, I definitely am. To create that culture, get them excited about what you're doing. Tips for helping them just like, I want to be a part of this. I love what we're doing here. I love that we're providing accounting and bookkeeping. So because to be honest with you, to me, accounting is not that exciting thing, but it's an important thing. How do you make accounting and bookkeeping, that mission and vision, exciting to these people?
Yeah. So I think, and this is what I did back in the day, but what a lot of people do is they wait till the end of the year, they dump everything on their account, and their accountant pays their taxes. And then they kind of repeat that every year. And I kind of learned from the Amazon business of doing that's not what you should be doing. And what should happen is the month should end within 10, 15 days of the month being over. You should get your income statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow, and there should be a meeting on your calendar where you go through that with your business partner, with your team leaders, with yourself, with your accountant, whoever it is, and make decisions based off those numbers and compare those numbers with the previous month, comparing those numbers to the same month last year, assuming you've been in business for longer than a year. And being able to look at trends. Is my expenses going up faster than my revenue? Am I selling 5 products, but only 2 of them are really profitable? Be able to actually look at what the numbers are telling you, rather than just by going by end of the year stuff or by money in your bank account or by what Amazon reports are saying. And I think once you get in the mentality that that's a part of being an entrepreneur, you don't have to love bookkeeping. You don't have to love accounting. You don't even have to log into QuickBooks. What you do need to do is get reports sent to you and go through them with someone else on your team to be able to look at it and make decisions and see what's happening and be able to adjust. And if you wait longer than that, 10 to 15 days, by then the information's obsolete. Your business has changed. New stuff has happened. So that's really my focus at Ecom Balance and why we built it. Is I think we're e-commerce sellers first. We're entrepreneurs first. We speak entrepreneur. A lot of bookkeepers don't do that.
Yes.
And we want to be able to make it hands off and do the books for you and not take up your time, but also display it in a way that you can understand it. You know what's going on in your business, help you understand it if you need that help, but let you make those good decisions. And there's added benefits where you don't have to scramble at the end of every year and you can just easily pass over to your accountant. If you ever do want to sell your business, I mentioned how that 6 months was super stressful, and that's with clean, immaculate books going back to day one. It's even more stressful if everything's in chaos and you have to hire a bookkeeper to get everything done. So there's added benefits, but the main reason is being able to make good decisions every single month.
Yeah, that's good. All right. So you guys sold FreeUp and then you had a waiting. How did you think, okay, we sold this. Now we're going to get into accounting and bookkeeping.
So what really happened was I thought that we would sell the company and I wouldn't see Connor for a year and we travel the world. And then the pandemic happened a few months later. And while we were stuck inside, we built the courses for Outsource School and people really liked that. And we're still running that. But we kind of used that time to just brainstorm. And man, we had a lot of bad ideas. I think we kind of took some of the lessons that we learned from FreeUp that we like big markets. I mean, hiring's a big market, bookkeeping's a big market, stuff that applies to all businesses. Stuff that there's other factors, whether it's recurring revenue, stickiness, being able to actually help clients and make a difference in their business, which is something we really enjoyed with FreeUp. So through a lot of brainstorming for a few years, we came up with the idea of Ecom Balance, and we did a ton of market research. We interviewed 200 plus e-commerce sellers.
Wow.
Just learn their pain points, the competitors, what they like, what they didn't like. We built a bookkeeping team here in Colorado and here in the Philippines, hybrid. We did a beta round with 35 clients, got them in, used them to break all our systems and perfect everything. And now we're in a good spot where hopefully we hit the ground running and turn marketing on and get this going. But I mean, as you know, you don't just like wake up one day and start a bit or think of an business and the next day you're running it. It's a whole process to go through. Yeah.
So that's awesome. You started with a beta group, because I was going to ask you how you test out something like that really small to even decide. When you started the beta group, were you pretty sure this is a huge pain point and this is going to work? Or you were just like, was it still a way to test out if this was even a viable thing?
I always like to go into it cautiously optimistic. Even with FreeUp, we kind of did the same thing. We had some initial clients, and same thing with Outsource School. People took Outsource School and they hated it. Like, we're not going to lose sleep over. We're going to shut down and be like, hey, that didn't work. We're going to refund people so they're happy, and we're going to move on to the next thing. And same thing with FreeUp and same thing with Ecom Balance. And we've had some bad business ideas in there, like every entrepreneur has. So you kind of go into it cautiously optimistic, and you make sure you're actually reading what people are telling you and listening to feedback and your team and all the other things what it's telling you.
That's awesome. So as you're talking to all these, in the Legends group, we had a webinar last Thursday, and it was about, running out of money and having more inventory, but you need more money it was my guy that, he also has a bookkeeping accounting service in my Legends group. But what are some of the things you're seeing with e-commerce sellers that are similar, related, the mistakes they're making, things that they should be doing and they're not, or just any things you're seeing as you're dealing with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, a few of the very basic mistakes. A lot of people will take the money that goes into their bank account, and that'll be the top line of their income statement, when really it's the Amazon report and then all the fees, and you should be able to break down your fees. I think a lot of sellers are not segmenting, so they know how much they're making per marketplace or per brand. That's a big one. Being able to project out cash flow, that's huge. I mean, we have an add-on service where we can help you project out your cash 12, 18 weeks cool. In advance, how people handle like cost of goods and inventory and actually doing it on an accrual basis, especially if you want the highest multiple, which we talked about before. That's incredibly important. Whereas FreeUp was very cash basis and it worked and wouldn't have affected the multiple if we did it accrual or cash. With e-commerce, it's very important that you don't want to spend $100,000 on inventory and have that show up just in January. You want to average that out so people actually can see how you're doing. So just a few things there, and every company is a little unique. So it's good to just dive in and figure out what makes the most sense.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a point in somebody's Amazon journey that they should hire a bookkeeper, or should that be day one?
So with any business, bookkeeping is one of the first things you should get off your plate. Like, there's almost no situation that an entrepreneur should be doing their own bookkeeping for two reasons. One, it's just not a good use of your time. Like if you want your business, the last thing you want to do is spend hours every month doing bookkeeping. You should be focused on sales and marketing and product testing or whatever. And second, most entrepreneurs just aren't good at bookkeeping. 9 times out of 10, any bookkeeping that you do is just going to have to get redone later by someone who actually knows what they're doing. So whether you're ready for e-com balance, which, I mean, we have a $250 minimum per month, and there's some ways to get it lower by like paying up front and ACH and referrals and stuff. But for the most part, it's $250 a month. That doesn't mean that you have to use us, but you should find someone else to do your bookkeeping. And that's what we did with FreeUp. Day one, before we were even profitable, we hired a bookkeeper. We had clean books. We knew what our expenses were, even when we weren't making much revenue. And that's what every entrepreneur should be doing. Doing your own bookkeeping is never a good decision. Yeah.
What are the most important parts of it? And when you get my bookkeeper, it's the statements, there's the balance sheet. What are the most important things to look at? I mean, you have to, even if you're not like me, I'm not good at that stuff, but I know enough to know what I need to know. Like, is there a certain report that is the most important, or are they all equally important to make decisions about the direction of your business?
Yeah, I mean, they're all important. I mean, there's some businesses that it's not that important. Like for FreeUp, a balance sheet didn't matter because you don't really have any assets or inventory or anything. With e-commerce, that's not the case. And we do bookkeeping for non-e-commerce businesses as well. I mean, income statement tends to be the one that most people look at. Again, you don't have to be an expert at all these things. It's pretty easy to know what the important lines are. And I think the biggest thing that people make is just looking at the numbers instead of actually comparing them. Like we like to show people, these are the trends that your business is going. This has gone up 10% since last month or whatever it is. So that's kind of the big thing there. Knowing your profit per marketplace and per SKU or per brand is incredibly important. And there are some businesses where cash flow is more or less important. Like we have an 8-figure seller that we work with who is very seasonal. And during the summer, they need to make sure they just have enough cash to pay their employees and not even make profit. They just need to survive every single summer until they get to the next year or the next season. So income statement and balance sheet are probably the main two, but cash flow can be equally as important.
Yeah, that's good. So you guys break it down even by SKU if the client wants that?
Yeah, we can segment it as much or as little as people want.
Wow. So like even per ASIN.
Yeah.
That's amazing because ASINs come and go quickly. So that's cool. Yeah, because that's really important to know. Like, is this ASIN even still profitable anymore? Really good. Man, I love this. How can people find you? Obviously, I want to let them know how they can get in touch with you for e-com balance, because this is huge. Like most people I talk to in Amazon space, that's just the bookkeeping is not their thing, and that it shouldn't even. They shouldn't be thinking about that. That's they shouldn't be trying to do that themselves. They need to hire somebody. So, want them to know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find on social media. Nathan Hirsch. I love chatting with other entrepreneurs. Feel free to reach out. If you're interested in my hiring process, check out Outsource School, outsourceschool.com. If you're interested in bookkeeping, our normal offer is 1 month free. But if you mention this podcast, you'll get 2 months free.
Oh, wow.
It's just ecombalance.com, exactly how it is on my shirt.
Cool. ecombalance.com. Love it. All right. I love this. Just thinking, you've been doing a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. It's tough. It's up and down to be an entrepreneur. Sometimes like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world. The next day it's like, I need to just go get a job. This is hard. Just encourage the listeners, like with, you've been through it. You've done this a long time now. You've probably had some days where like, I just need to quit and do something else, and days that like, this is amazing. I love it. So encourage those folks that are on this journey with us?
Yeah, a big part of being an entrepreneur is to learn lessons and to learn lessons quickly and to not make the same mistake twice, because we all make mistakes. And when I look back on some of the most devastating times of me being an entrepreneur, and I know it sounds all nice, like I sold the company, but there have been some devastating times, as I'm sure you and everyone else has experienced. But looking back on them and in hindsight, there isn't one time that I didn't just learn a very valuable lesson that I still use to this day. So kind of look at it that way and look at it all as lessons that are helping you make better and better decisions going forward. And try to stay that even keel that you mentioned this. When you start entrepreneurship, every day is either the best day of your life or the worst day. And as you go further, you become a little bit numb. Everything that goes wrong is a problem you have to solve. And every time you have a good day, you know you're one bad thing away from getting knocked down a peg, and it's very humbling. So try to keep it in neutral. Yes.
And also I'd say, look back at what you've done. Like, it's so easy for, to look and compare. Like, I could compare myself to you and be like, man, I've never sold a company and made what, I don't know what you made, and it's none of my business, but had a big payday like that, or compare myself to somebody who's just 5 years, 10 years down the road. Don't do that. We're all in our own race, and comparison is the thief of joy. So just do your thing and don't worry about everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot of rich, miserable people out there. So don't believe everything you see on social media.
That's
Focus
so true.
on building your own ideal life.
That's right, man. I love it. Well, man, you're welcome back anytime you want to chat about anything else, or your next business opportunity that you and Connor conquer. You may sell Ecom Balance one day, and I got something else you need to come back on and talk about. So
we'll see. Well, it's always good catching up with you, and thanks for having me on.
Of course.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.